Welcome to What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm your host, Jill Bennett. This is the channel that shares ideas to help you live your best life, because life can be beautiful if you live consciously. Welcome to this week's edition of What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm delighted today to have with me Sophie Watson. Now, Sophie helps corporate and entrepreneurial women to create a life that they love. And we all know that we want to live our best and most beautiful life. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Jill. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you here today. Okay, Sophie, a lovely area of work to be in. Tell us what made you move into this line of work.
Well, the line of work that I'm doing, it's very spiritual. So it's not like normal coaches or counselors working with their clients. So when I was younger, I was always fascinated in the unseen. So and my mum used to go and see clairvoyants and mediums, and I have a feeling that she was told that I would end up doing this kind of work, because when I was about 15, she came home and she'd bought me tarot cards and crystals. Now, she never bought my sister anything like that. So I was fascinated by them and used to sit and muck about with my friends and do the tarot cards. And then they all got put to one side as I got older and got a job and life takes over. Well, it got to a point where I had many different jobs over the years, and then went and actually I became a head photographer for a portrait company, and I was doing everything. I loved the job, but I was doing the evenings, the weekends, the bank holidays, and it just took over my life. And in the end, I just handed in my notice with nothing to go to. And I just kept getting in the back of my head that I needed to go and see a clairvoyant or a medium. So my friend gave me this number for this woman, and it was before the days of Facebook and your details being everywhere on the internet. So the only information that this woman had on me was my phone number and my first name. So I've gone along and seen her. Sorry, dogs have started barking.
Oh, don't worry, mine might start as well. So
it will go quiet.
It's real life.
I know. So yes, I've gone and see this woman, and everything that she was saying was absolutely spot on. She was bringing through my granddad, she was bringing through my uncle, and it was down to details. Like she said, your granddad says, remember the marbles. I was like, okay, well, when I was a kid, I had a tin with Princess Di and Charles on it, and it was full of marbles, and we used to play with them. So I was like really listening to this woman, because she was just absolutely spot on. And then she said to me, you could be doing what I'm doing. I was like, really? But how? And she said, well, I'd have you sit in my spiritual development group, but you live too far away. And I was like, I don't mind traveling. That's absolutely fine. And she said, no, you need to find your own group. So I kept that in my mind. And then we continued the conversation, and then she mentioned Reiki. Now, at the time, I'd never heard of Reiki before. She didn't say that I should learn it, but she just mentioned it. And I'm sat there thinking, what the hell is this Reiki thing? I don't know what this is. So I left there and looked up and did a bit of research on Reiki. And I was like, oh my God, people can do that? That sounds amazing. I want to learn. And it was only a couple of weeks later that there was a psychic fair on down the road from where I was living. So I thought I'd go along. Walked in, and lo and behold, there in front of me is a woman advertising that she taught Reiki. So I had a conversation with her, booked on for her weekend course, went along, and it turned out that it was just me and one other woman on this course for the whole weekend. So I was like, great, this is really good. She'd got her friend along for us to practice on. And when it came time to do the work, I worked on him. And when I finished, he sat up and he said, all I'm getting is the future's bright. I thought, well, that's a bit of a strange thing to say. Turns out he ran a spiritual development group. So it's like, as soon as I made the decision I wanted to go down that route, the right people just appeared in front of me. So so I started Sitting Development Group, and I did all my levels of Reiki. And in the meantime, I got a job as a pharmacy technician, which I absolutely hated, but I ended up staying there for 7 years. And what it allowed me to do was it allowed me to develop my skills, but also because we had regular customers coming in, I would get to know them and their problems, and then I could offer them Reiki. So I used to go around to their houses after work and do treatments on them. And then we got to 2012, and that is when my whole world started to crumble around me. So obviously I was in a job that I hated. We'd moved into the house next door to my parents, which nothing had been done to it since 1970. So we were living in it and renovating it at the same time. Then my mum, she was only about 56 or 57 at the time. She was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's.
Gosh.
And then 3 months later, breast cancer. And my husband and I were diagnosed with unexplained infertility. So I had all of this going on at once, and I thought I was coping, but actually in reality I wasn't at all. And it was my behavior. I was doing stuff that was completely out of character that actually brought it to a head. So I had to take a step back and go, okay, what do I have control over? And the only thing was my job. So I was like, okay, what do I want to be doing? Well, I love doing the healing work. I love working with spirit. That is what I want to do. And I want to work for myself. So as soon as I made that decision, the right people appeared in front of me. So a business coach suddenly appeared. And so this was by the end of 2013. I signed up to work with the business coach in November. By January 2014, I was running my business full time. So that's where it all started.
It's amazing, isn't it? And just to say, if there are any naysayers out there who don't, and I will say understand, because I think non-believers just don't understand the spiritual world. No. But I had a reading back in, oh my goodness, it must have been in the late 80s. And this woman started saying things that didn't really make sense to me at all. She looked at my appearance and decided she could see all these airports. And she said, are you cabin crew? And I went, no. And then she could see lots of figures and this, that, and the other. A few years later, I got the opportunity to train to be an auditor. And following on from that, I started auditing British embassies and high commissioners all over the world.
Oh, wow.
So everything she said was right, but it was all a few years into the future. And luckily, I remembered all these things that she'd said. She could also see me being driven around in a red car. And when I met my husband, he had a red car. And, you know, when we first started going out with each other, I would be in that red car. So to anyone out there who doesn't believe in this, you really don't understand. And if you're open to it, you should explore. It's not for everybody, but there is so much that you can do to help yourself. And with people like you, Sophie, you can really, really help people to move their lives forward. I had a look at the testimonials on your website, and you've worked with lots of women who are working in the corporate world or running their own business who suffer from anxiety, overwhelm, depression. And there's some great testimonials there. So how do you help them?
So what I do, it's not about, they come to me thinking that they've got one issue. And it's normally how others are reacting to them or they're reacting to others. And a lot of the time it is within the workplace. But what I find is that actually, when we sit down and we start doing the work, so I'm connecting with spirit, I have guides that actually give me ages and dates of when something first occurred. So it may be that what's actually the way that they're reacting to others was actually caused when they were younger. It may be like when they were 5 or something was going on. So I can say to them, okay, well, what do you remember about that time? What stands out for you? And we can normally figure it out very, very quickly and get to the root. So we're dealing with that original issue that they may think is totally unconnected. But also, a lot of the time, if there is an issue, they think that they've dealt with it. But if I'm picking up on it, they haven't at all.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're clearing that underlying energy that is just creating those coping mechanisms within them. And so once we've cleared that energy, we can then start looking at, well, what's a better way to react in one of these situations? What's a better way to deal with this energy? And so I'm teaching my clients tools and techniques that they can use even after we've finished the sessions. So they haven't got to keep continuously coming back to me for me to go, okay, we need to work on this.
Yeah.
This is how you can deal with things moving forward. And a lot of the time they say to me, do you know what? I feel so much lighter. And it's because we let go of something. So that's one of the ways I work with them. I'm also what's known as an empath, which means that I physically feel other people's emotions, their energetic blocks and physical pain. So if my guys are not giving me an age as to when something occurred, it may be that my throat starts going croaky. And when that happens, that's because there's things that that person's not saying to others. So it's
it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And you know, touching on the things that you think you've cleared that you haven't, I've had an issue in my life that's cropped up in so many different workshops and healing sessions, and every time I think it's cleared, and then it crops up again a few years later. So I mean, it wasn't very traumatic, but I remember seeing a resonance practitioner. I don't know if you've come across resonance, which a lot of chiropractors, he was a chiropractor, and he was working on me, and he just said, he said, the whole of the right side of your body is shriveled up. He said, what happened to you when you were 12? And I was like, oh my God, this is the same issue coming up again. And he said, you don't need to tell me, but I know something traumatic happened to you when you were 12. I mean, honest to goodness, it's cropped up so many times in my life. And him saying about my right side, it was that's the side I always get, you know, a little bit of hip pain or a little bit of a numb leg. Or so you're absolutely right. It's incredible how we think we've dealt with these things so many times, and then it crops up again.
Exactly. And the right hand side of the body is all about the past. So that's energy that you're holding on to. If you're getting pain in the left hand side, that's more about worrying about the future.
I'm not a worrier about the future.
No, but it's interesting. So noticing where the pain comes up as well, because our thoughts and emotions are all energy. Energy doesn't die. And so when we don't deal with our emotions in the right way, they become trapped in our body. And they keep coming up to go, excuse me, you need to work on this. But a lot of the time we ignore it.
That's right. And as you said earlier, it could be something you're just not really aware of, because it could be from when you were so young, or it could even be inherited, you know, stuck energy that you've got from either your past life or from a parent's past life. I love it. I just love it. It's so fascinating. So I guess many of us have what looks like a perfect life, but we're still unhappy or unsatisfied. And you can just see so many very wealthy, successful people that this happens to. You're constantly pushing yourself, but at the same time, you're unsure of what the next right move is. Why is it that some people are like that? They're on the outside, they just appear so successful.
So a lot of the time, what I find with my clients is that maybe they are actually following what society says they should do, what their parents have said that they wanted them to do. So a lot of the time, like my husband's a classic example. He always wanted to do music, but his dad said, you're not going to make it in music. You have to do engineering. So that's what he didn't have enough confidence to stand up to his dad when he was younger. And so that's what he ended up going into, was engineering. And yes, he's really successful in what he does now, because he fits hydraulic floors in swimming pools for billionaires. And he's currently in Belgium doing that right now. But he's not happy because it's not his purpose. It doesn't fulfill him. It doesn't make him happy at all. So a lot of the time when I'm working with my clients, it's like, okay, well, how did you end up in doing this role? How did you end up here? What was it that you enjoyed doing as a kid or as you got older? What are the things that light you up? And are you doing those? Because if you're not, then you, more often than not, you're on the wrong pathway.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people are so unhappy, because although they look as though they've got the perfect life, they're not actually fulfilling what really lights them up.
And I think as a parent, it's our responsibility to let our children find their own way. You know what, with our children, they've both been to university, but we never thought our youngest one would, because it just didn't appear right for her. And it was her decision in the end to go. But I've seen many, many parents who've pushed their children either to go when they don't want to go, or to do a course that wasn't their choice. And it never ends up very happily at all.
No.
So we need to be responsible. We need to let our children find their own way in life and decide what they want to do.
Exactly.
I guess as career women, often our relationships with partners and family and colleagues can be strained. We can often feel like no one is listening to us or even understanding us. And I know with me, it was a real struggle to juggle work and children and commuting into London and home life. Why is it that so many women, and I'm sorry guys, any guys listening, but it does appear to be women who suffer with this the most, but why is it that so many women seem to hit this wall?
Again, because they're trying to fulfill what society says we should be doing. So you're trying to look like we seem to think that we need to be working full time when we've got kids. We need to be doing this. We need to be doing that. We need to be fulfilling all of those roles, when actually we don't need to. We just need to decide what is right for us and do it our own way. It doesn't matter what other people think you should or shouldn't be doing, or what they might say. It's about, again, what is right for us, not what is right for everybody else.
Yeah. I know I sort of hit that wall at 50, and I left my career. And I haven't gone back. I've never gone back to it since. So sometimes you just have to listen to your gut, don't you, and do what's right for you.
Do you know, that's the only thing I ever listen to. Is my gut instinct, my first instinct that comes up, because it's always the right one. It's always what is right for you. And we're not taught that. We're taught to analyze everything and overanalyze, and that doesn't do us any good.
No, certainly doesn't. So what tools have you got to help you manage stress levels and the way that you think about life?
So for me, I have a morning routine. So I start my day in the best possible way. So my alarm goes off, I stay in bed, I do a meditation. And it's always a guided meditation, because if I do fall back asleep, it's okay, because I've got this voice going on that I can hear. And so I very rarely nod back off again. But also with a guided meditation, I'm able to, if my mind does wander off anywhere, I can quickly catch it and focus back on the voice that's speaking again. So that's the first thing that I do every morning. I also take the dogs for a walk. So that's connecting with nature. That's really grounding me. So what you find that a lot of people that are overthinkers or worriers, all the energy's up in their head. And so it needs to be grounded. It needs to bring down. So going for a walk, connecting with the earth, putting your feet flat on grass, having your feet barefooted on grass, is a great way to reconnect, and it brings that energy back down, so that you can then start to think a bit clearer. And going out for a walk in nature is a bit like a meditation. Just noticing everything around you. So something that I do quite often is I do gratitude in my head as I'm walking around, and I'm like, oh my God, the sky is so beautiful today. or I love the color of the leaves. Thank you so much, universe. And it's just about recognizing and connecting and being present in that moment, rather than thinking ahead about, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that today. When am I going to get time to do this? It's about taking that time for yourself. And it's not being selfish, because if you think about it, we're always told to put our oxygen masks on first when we're in an airplane and then help somebody else. It's exactly the same in everyday life. Yeah. That is what we should be doing, looking after our own energy first, and then we've got more energy in which to help others in a much bigger way.
There's a fantastic book by Hal Elrod. Have you heard of it? The Miracle Morning.
Yes.
And he says exactly the same thing. I mean, his life had gone through some major disasters. So starting with, if you think of lifesavers, savers, silence or meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading and scribing. So morning pages is another great way, isn't it? And if I'm sort of feeling a bit low, I will write. But like you, it's gratitude. What am I grateful for today? We have so much to be grateful for.
Exactly.
If I hear anyone complaining about getting old, I always say, what's the alternative? I lost my brother when he was 49. Oh. You know, you must be grateful to get old. It's, you know, it's one of those things that a lot of people are denied the privilege of growing old. So you're absolutely right. Start in the morning in a very calm, relaxed way, and meditation is so powerful.
A lot of my clients have said to me, but I've got children. Well, get the children involved.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start teaching them, they're going to be so much calmer as adults.
Yeah.
And
wake up earlier.
Yeah.
Get up earlier. Just set your alarm.
5 minutes. Just do 5 minutes. That's all it takes. It's not going to take long. Yeah,
no, it's a very powerful way to start the day. And my next question was going to be, how can we improve our mindset and attitude towards money and abundance? But I think that what we've just been talking about is really one way. You know, gratitude is so powerful, isn't it?
So powerful. It switches how you view the world. And so I've got a neighbor, I love him to bits, but he's quite pessimistic. He's quite a grumpy old man. But one of the things he says to me is, Sophie, I love your attitude to life. I love how positive you are. I wish I could be like that. And something he told me was that he went and bought some O-rings to do a job at his house. And it was a packet of 100. And he thought, well, they're going to outlive me. I was like, no, they're here to help you. But just catch yourself when you're saying those kind of things. Another thing that he commented on was, so I had COVID. I managed to avoid it for 2 years. And then I suddenly got it. And I then had 5 concerts to go to. But so I got the COVID literally 2 or 3 weeks before I was due to go to the first concert. So by the time I came to the concert, it was gone. And I said to him, I think the universe gave it to me at that point in time so that I didn't miss out on my concerts, because the universe knew how much I wanted to go to these concerts. And he's like, I would never have thought of it like that. He says that's amazing.
But it's true. If you'd caught it at the first or second concert, you'd have missed the rest.
I would have missed them all.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's so important, isn't it, to rephrase the way that we're thinking. And people in the Western world have a roof over their head. They generally have food on their table.
Yes.
And there's always something we can be grateful for. It's so it's just so important. Is it possible for people who maybe have this half glass empty negative attitude to find themselves to have a fun life, be part of a community of like-minded people, get help and support to start creating their best and most beautiful life?
Yes, they can. They've just got to take that first step. And then take the next one and the next one. Keep going. It's about consistency. It's about so even though, yes, I have an amazing life now, I love where I live. I love my husband and my dogs and like the people that I've got around me. But I'm still working on myself. There is always something to work on.
Yeah.
There is always something you can improve. So the mantra to have would be that I'm becoming a better version of myself every day.
Yeah.
And if you've got that in your mind, then you're really conscious about, okay, what can I do to be a better person today?
Yeah. My mantra is I'm happy, healthy, and wealthy.
Love it.
And I say it to myself before I go to sleep at night. In fact, if I keep repeating it in my head, it helps my mind to switch off and helps me to go to sleep. I say it in the morning. I say it when I'm out walking the dog. You know, it runs through my mind so much. So I think, yeah, pick a mantra that fits your life or the life you want to have, and focus on the things you're grateful for in your current life. Just very quickly, because we are running out of time, but I think we've probably covered this actually, but why do we need to explore our own energy, and how can we do that?
Again, it's so that we can become better versions of ourselves. We can be happy and we can actually follow the right pathway for ourselves. And the way to do that is just to, first of all, acknowledge we're not perfect. There is always something we can improve on. And it's about acknowledging what it is that we first need to do for ourselves. So maybe it's to be able to communicate with people better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where you start.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to fix everything all in one go, because that would just be too overwhelming. Just pick one thing to work on.
Yeah. And the relationship with you, starting off with a morning routine, is a really good way to start as well, I think.
Yeah.
Now, Sophie, I know you have very kindly offered a 30-minute discovery call with people. How will that work?
So basically, I call it a curiosity call, because for me, it feels like a much nicer way of doing things. It's about a conversation. So what we do is we get on Zoom, we have a 30-minute call where we're talking about where you're at now, where you want to get to, and because of the way that I work, I would pick up on what is preventing you from getting there. And then if it feels like a match, if it feels like we could work together, then we would talk about what would be the best program for you. And then we go from there. So there's no obligation at all. If I'm not the right person to work with you, then I do so much networking. I've got so many connections. There is going to be somebody that I can connect them with. Yeah. So it's about getting that help, not just staying where you are.
Yeah. Well, I will put all the contact details for you and the link to book the discovery call in the show notes. And Sophie, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jill.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Check out all the links to the resources mentioned in today's episode and all my freebies in the show notes. See you next time.